Daddy, it felt like a quick goodbye. Mama's the long goodbye.
Yeah.
And she is leaving. Like, the mother I knew is pretty much gone. And so it's just this strange space. And so I went back to a therapist that had done some work a decade ago. And so he knew my stories with my mom and my dad. And it was crucial because he was the advocate for my mental health, my emotional health. Yeah. And so he was able to name when I would say, no, I can do this another 6 months. No, I can keep her at home another 6 months. Both he and Tim said, no, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You're not going to be okay. It's time to move her. And so it was so helpful to have advocates advocating both also for me.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 28 of the Age of Lions podcast. We're so glad that you're here with us today. We have an incredible episode for you today, talking about a really powerful, sensitive, tender subject that's close to many of our hearts. And we're really fortunate to have our special guests today, who are Tim and Susan Tucker, some good friends of mine and Jinda's. And I'm excited also to have Jinda co-hosting this episode with me as we interview them about two big topics. One of those is what we would often call, all of us use the phrase empty nest. It's something that many people in our age group have gone through or are going through or are about to go through. There's a lot of emotions around that, a lot of feelings about that change of life. It's a big deal. And the other thing we're going to talk about is what it's like to take care of aging parents. Tim and Susan have had a really unique seat in both of these spaces. And right now they're currently taking care of Susan's mom, and they were also taking care of her dad for a while before he passed and went on to be with the Lord. And so they've got some really interesting takeaways from that, some great insights, and some things that I think we all can learn from in what it means to honor the older generation, to take care of them, to invest in them, to honor our parents, as Scripture tells us, and just some of the hard parts and some of the beautiful parts that come from that. So I hope you're ready to lean in and learn from them. It's going to be awesome. Before we get to that, I want to remind you to like, subscribe, follow on whatever channels you're consuming this podcast, whether it's an audio platform like Spotify or Apple Podcast, or maybe you're watching on YouTube. But make sure you subscribe to those channels. Let us know that you're watching. And also, I'd love to encourage you to go to ageoflions.com and get on our mailing list so that we know that you're an active listener. We can send you updates and kind of insights and information ahead of the curve a little bit, so you can kind of be in part of the community and know what's going on. And that's really important too, because we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're liking, not liking, what you'd like to hear more about, what are some topics we could get into, or maybe some guests you would love to hear from, because this is not something we're doing on our own. We're not the experts here. We're doing this with you, alongside you. And I really want to hear from you about what would be meaningful to you. So please do that. Join the community, be part of what we're doing. And hey, without any further ado, let's jump into this great interview with Tim and Susan Tucker. Hey, Tuckers, how are you guys today?
Doing great. Doing well.
We're well. It's good to see your faces.
It's so good to see you guys too. I was telling everybody before we got on kind of how we know each other, so we don't have to get into all that again. But it's always fun to see you guys, because we don't get to do it as much as we want to, or as often as we want to. But it's so fun to see you guys in person. Update everybody real quick, just kind of on where you guys are, where you live, and about your boys and daughter-in-law and all, just so they have a picture of kind of y'all's life real quick.
So we live in Knoxville, Tennessee. We've lived here, now 25 years, which is hard to believe. And we're the parents of two boys who are now young adults. Our oldest is 26, and he lives in Colorado with his wife. I'm super proud of them as they're starting their careers. Both of them are licensed mental health counselors. And so, we are grateful that we have a small airport here that can get us to Colorado in about 3 hours, which is lovely to be able to visit them. And then our youngest son lives in Nashville. He's 23 and he is a grad student. And so he's also 3 hours away, but by car.
Right. And as we've talked about this before, but we're very familiar, obviously, with the kids living all over the place. Yes. As Jinda has got kids from Delaware to Texas and Montana and soon to be Europe, which is hard to imagine.
It is hard to imagine.
But it's a real thing. And so
looking forward to the wedding.
Yeah, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so fun. So I know you guys listen to the podcast from time to time, and so you're familiar with this. We like to always ask everybody at the beginning, just to kind of kick things off, at what point did you start to realize I'm a little older than I'd like to think I am? What was that kind of aha moment for each of you where you sort of realized I'm moving into a new chapter?
Well, a funny moment for me is I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so I could relate everything to a Seinfeld episode. And work with coworkers, and something happened. I was like, that was just like a Seinfeld episode, and they all looked at me like I was from Mars. Like, what's Seinfeld? And I went, that's not right. These kids are too young to remember Seinfeld of all things. That's just not right. So I think that was the first time I realized I'm just not as cool as I thought I was. And
you're still really cool, though.
Yeah. In fact, I would say they're not cool. Let's just go there.
Yeah, exactly. And who doesn't know Seinfeld?
I'm telling you. Susan, how about you?
Yeah, I think the time I was aware that I was older was surprisingly in my late 30s when we joined a seeker-friendly church, and we actually found ourselves in the older demographic of the church, and it was quite shocking to be looked at as a mentor and as one of the elders in the church. And quite literally, Tim became an elder pretty soon after we joined. And that happened a lot earlier in my life than I thought it would. But I think differentiating being older from aging, the first time I was aware that I was aging probably was in 2019. I had a long season of back pain that left me immobile on the couch for about 3 months. And that was, I think, the first time in my adult life that I didn't bounce back quickly from something. And so that was when, like, the idea of older as in I am aging kind of came home to me.
Yeah, it is funny though, Tim, I can relate to what you're saying because I work, at a college, and so many of the things that I want to say, I just put through the filter. Like, you don't know. You're not going to know. None of you are going to know. You're all younger than my oldest child, some of them younger than my fourth oldest child. And I'm struggling to remain relevant. Like, is it 6, 7? Is it, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. So fortunately I have Rivers to kind of help me stay up with the lingo to his delight.
Well, I just learned what 6, 7 even doesn't mean, I guess. I just heard that for the first time just a week or two ago.
Yeah. Just try to unhear it. We don't have to go there. No one will know what we're talking about. But when you think about kind of, and you're both very, heart forward, very deep people. And I feel like you've spent the entire time we've known each other really caring for people and learning to care for each other and your family and learning to care for me. Wondering now, how is your processing different? Like, when you look at things, situations, people now, how is it different than it would have been, let's say, 20, 25 years ago?
I think 20 years ago, I would have felt a sense of urgency that I don't feel now. I think it's going to take as long as it takes now. And so I think I would have felt this push to solve problems, to help people, to do all the things as quickly as possible back then. And I don't know that quick is always best. Yeah. In fact, I think actually the slow work is where there's the most fruit.
Yeah, I think so. And that makes you so easy to be with because there's never this tyranny of the urgent. The way you are with people is so spacious, and I really love it. But I loved the old way too. How about you, Tim?
The first thing that comes to mind is the word settledness. That's changed over time of trying to figure out where my place in the world when I was younger and looking to be accepted in whatever circles I was navigating in, needing that validation from others. I think I still struggle with that some, but not as much. Yeah. Where I can hopefully enter those spaces, bringing my true self rather than trying to find validation and that settledness of seeing people for who they are. Is probably the way I would answer that question.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guest on, and I don't know when this is going to air, so it might be last week or it might be a month ago, but we had a guest on recently who Krista Letson's her name. She's a teaching pastor at a church up in North Alabama. But she was talking about how much identity she thought that would not be such a challenge as she got older, and that how that has turned out not to be the case. And how it's just an ongoing, an ongoing cycle of like you said, Tim, like I thought I'd be better at it. I am better in some ways maybe I'm not as good, or I don't know if it's better or worse, but I think we're definitely more aware of it as we get older. So it probably feels worse or feels harder.
Yeah.
It's definitely a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And then also I think, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little more, I'm still, like set in my ways a little bit. I don't know.
just a little.
Ornery.
I can relate.
I'm going to remain silent right now. I'm going to just remain silent.
She's going to take the fifth. Well, let me ask you guys this. We're all similar age in our 50s, and I know how intentional you guys are about things. You spend a lot of time thinking, praying, planning, discussing, not much happens in your life by accident as far as like what you guys are choosing to do. You're making very intentional choices. So as you're aging, what are some things you're doing to stay healthy, whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? What are some things you're doing to kind of actively invest in yourselves for the future, in the sense of hoping for longevity for, your kids, your grandkids in the future, et cetera? What are some things you guys are doing actively in practice to invest in yourselves?
I think two things come up with your question, Mark. Keep moving and keep learning. And so for me, the keep moving part is quite literally one foot in front of the other, trying to walk every day. I had become quite sedentary. And then when COVID came about, I realized I needed to make some changes. And so our local park and walking was crucial for my mental health during the pandemic. But then I realized this is crucial for a lot more than just my mental health. And so began then this routine of walking regularly at the park. And so that's one thing, is moving. And I do want to keep up with my very active sons and husband. And so that means I've got to challenge myself in that regard. And then the second thing is keep learning. I want to keep my brain sharp. This may come up later in our conversation, but I have a mother who struggles with dementia. And so when you are a caregiver for someone with dementia, you're very aware of mental decline. And so I want to make choices now that keep me sharp. And I also still have a zest for learning. And so you talk about investment, that's meant that some of our financial resources go into programs that I feel passionate about, that I need further training in. And so moving and learning would be the two things that come up for me.
That's great.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah. I think about those categories too, like our physical health, mental health, spiritual health. And physically, just trying to stay active. I try to run, I used to say 3 times a week, but it's reduced some because I've started an exercise class, because I also see that how important it is for our full body workout. So I've been doing that a little more than running, but running also helps me with my mental health. I don't know, something about running helps me unwind, and it's a de-stressor for me. So I maintain that. And in the emotional, spiritual world, the idea, what God's really led me into was exploring my own story. And moving into the gray spaces of my life. I will probably talk about more about that as well. But the emotional, spiritual, learning more about who I am in Christ and who Christ made me to be. That's a pretty big statement. But learning to be, being curious in those spaces, staying curious in those spaces. And then with myself and with others, I think. Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a little follow-up question about that, Tim. When you say gray spaces, that's a term I can infer what I think you mean, but tell us what you mean by that. I'd love to hear you unpack that a little bit.
Well, so this has been about it's been a multi-year journey, but really taken up a lot of, taken up a lot of steam in the past 3 to 4 years. I'll say this, I'm an engineer, and I became an engineer because I wanted right, wrong, 1 + 1 = 2, 3 + 3 = 6. Those are exact, black and white, easy. English was awful for me. I thought it was very subjective and not fair with the grades I got in school. And then I married an English major, the opposite attract. But so what I'm getting at is like the black and white of where can I be, and then where the gray spaces are is where am I allowed to be angry? Where am I allowed to be justified in answering something? It has to be black and white. So where God's leading me is where I've gone is like exploring those gray spaces of where can I enter into my emotions and my feelings, and learning that those emotions in and of themselves are God-given. Where we take those emotions is, we need to sanctify those things. And so, but the emotions themselves are important. And that's where I mean by gray spaces. That's where God's really taking me in my walk with Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like that could be its own podcast. Like that's
no doubt.
That's really, there's so much wisdom in what you just shared and the work that I know behind the scenes you two are doing around that space, and it being able to invite others in to that exploration alongside your own. It's great.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that and say, Tim, I identify with that so much because you and we're very different personalities, but we do have that in common in the sense of I'm a high justice, black and white kind of person. And things should be fair and should be right. I mean, Enneagram 1, that's just the nature of that. And I feel that so much sometimes if you feel like someone's done you wrong, or as a man, especially, sometimes you're like, when do I get to push back? When do I get to not raise your voice so much, but just bow up a little bit? Or when's it okay to stand up into a situation? And something I've said to Jinda so many times, at different times with other situations, like I get so sick of taking the high road all the time. Like I feel like I'm always defaulting into that kind of nice guy, good Christian guy, trying to do the right thing. And obviously that's hopefully the Holy Spirit working in me. But when do I get to be mad? When do I get to say something back to somebody or challenge something, even if it's in hopefully a healthy way? But it's so hard in the moments, especially in the heat of a moment, to know how to do that. Right. I feel that so much. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, I think about Jesus and his life, and he was angry.
Yes.
And
exactly.
But he didn't sin in his anger. And he was sad.
He did make some trouble.
Yeah, he did.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you do that?
Yeah, how do you do it?
Make the trouble.
I'll make a little trouble, but not go too far. And that's a lot of tension in that. Right.
Yeah, it's good.
And I feel like he did it unto something, not just because he was frustrated and not getting enough sleep. Like maybe, but also I think he was going after the bigger issue of the heart in his trouble. Right. So maybe you could use that as your measuring stick mark. One thing I will say is I have always admired about the two of you, and I've gotten to see it from the beginning, is your parenting, your intentionality with your boys, your family, all the games, the trips, the conversations, the hard things you've all walked to. You just really have navigated that so beautifully and still do. And what I would love to talk about right now, is kind of that pivot of how you take what was happening inside your home into, I don't really like the term empty nest. I just think it's a different season, but empty nest sounds so, I don't know, empty. but you all have made it really full of life. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about kind of your philosophies or challenges, things you're learning about this season, and, tell the people about that.
That's good. Yeah. The first thing I think about is, and I don't know how we're doing it. I just really like hanging out with Susan. She's a pretty cool person. This space that our boys left was pretty vacant. There was some grieving that we had to do, but now, I mean, but learning to see my wife and again as a friend, and spending time with her again, and like without all the pressures of where Seth need to go, where Reed needs to go, or where our sons, or homework, all that stuff is not around anymore. So there's a lot more spaciousness to be with each other in that space. So being intentional with that, as far as not going to complacency and really staying in each other's vision and eyesight, seeing how they're doing and being with them.
That's great.
I don't think, what about you, Susan?
Yeah, I would say our friendship has been one thing that has been just such a saving grace as the boys left the house. I mean, we would genuinely love being together, and we have a ton of fun together. And so that really helped the house not seem so empty when the boys were gone, because Tim brings a liveliness and energy to our home that he always did, and that continues. And so just loving our time. I would say also just the fact, like, he's my greatest ally. And so, like, he provides a ton of wisdom for me, because being a mama to adult sons is very different than being a mama to toddlers and teenagers. And so it's so great to have an ally who can kind of catch you and has earned the right to speak some truth to you over 3 decades of life together.
Yes.
So there are lots of moments where my mama bear energy is rising up, because I have some wisdom I really need to share to the boys. They need to hear this. And then Tim will catch me and give me some counsel or challenge. And sometimes it's not really welcome, but it's needed. And so I think he has saved me many times over the past. I think we're in year 7 of empty nesting with Seth and year 5 with Reed. He saved me many times from over parenting. And like releasing them to come alongside them instead of trying to show them the way. They're finding their way, and they're doing a great job with it. And sometimes I feel like I need to be right there shining the flashlight. And Tim's been so great to like coach me a little bit of, hey, I think they've got this. Yeah. So it's grateful for that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, my wife has really taught me to stay connected with my sons.
Wow.
And being more intentional in that space. And that is a challenge for me, is to how important it is to stay connected with, not in an overbearing way, but just checking in with them from like an adult to adult type situation or a communication, just checking in, seeing how they're doing, and still being there for them. That's how Susan really helps me stay present with them, and I'm learning. I'm trying to be better at it. Yeah.
We had a guest early in the podcast who's a marriage family therapist and a good friend of ours, and she has adult kids as well. And she said, it's that challenge from going from parent to consultant. Is sort of that challenge, and some people navigate that really well, and some really struggle to pivot, like you guys are talking about. And one of you said something really interesting. I wanted to kind of follow up on. You said there was some grieving, and I think anybody who's been through that, and all 4 of us have, understand that. But I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit. And the question I want to ask around it is, again, as proactive as you guys tend to be, was this something that you planned for? prepped for, kind of knew it was coming and tried to do some things to get ready? And did that help, or did you not do it, or did you do it and it still was just as hard because you just really didn't know how to prepare? Like, I'd love to hear how you guys navigated that on the front and then through it and now on the backside.
Well, Susan is a very good planner, and I am not in this realm.
So I'll tell my story first, and then you can finish the story. How's that?
Sounds good.
So I knew as Seth began his senior year that it was going to be tough for me. And so I actually entered a season of therapy around the time he was entering his senior year, not really cognizant that this was for preparing me to launch him. I think I went in probably with other things in mind, but over the course of, basically a year of work, it became clear that I was doing the work so that I would be okay when he left the house. Mm-hmm. And I think that was both for me and for Seth. Like, I think I wasn't sure that I would be okay when he left, quite honestly. And I think he and I have always had a pretty close connection. So I think he would have read me and my fear and my anxiety about launching him. And so I think it was, to use the phrase you used earlier, Jinda, unto launching him well and transitioning me to the next chapter in my story. And so I think the fruit of that is when we took him to college. And our boys both went to 4-year residential colleges. So, we packed his room and moved him out. Like, it was tender and there was definitely emotions, but I had grieved well in advance. So I actually rode in the car with him the whole 3-hour drive to hit their college, and was able to be playful with him and be annoying to him and just be fully myself with him and what I think is the best possible mama he's experienced. And over the weekend, there were tears, but it did not take me out. I thought it would level me. It did not. And we actually gave him autonomy to name when he was ready for us to go. And so we had told him, buddy, when you're ready, you send us a text or just tell us and we'll leave. And Tim and I were on one of many, many runs to Walmart, and we got a text saying, when you get back with this load of groceries, I'm ready for you to go. Mm-hmm. So I think there were tears in aisle 7 of Walmart, and we did some deep breathing on the way back to campus to be our most courageous selves. But he met us in the parking lot, and we gave him his bags, and we had lingering hugs, and we did have some tears. But I did not fall apart the way I had expected to. And I think it's because I had done the work to prepare. And I felt like he could walk into the dorm without worry for his mama.
It's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
And how was it for you, Tim?
So, switch gears a little bit. So, I was moving into this space thinking I need to be the rock for my wife. The mama, she's going to be losing one of her chicks in the nest. And I was gearing up to be the emotional support and the guy that will hold everybody together and be that rock for the family. And when we got that text, I was like, oh, here we go. All right. So we go, I hug him. I'll never forget. I knew something was ending. And it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Wow.
Out of nowhere. And I held it together in front of Seth. And I was beginning to break apart. And God he snuck up on me big time. And Seth had left a suitcase in the trunk of our car. And he said, and so we were driving down, and I was about to break down. And Seth texted and said, oh, I forgot. So we had to turn around and drop the suitcase off. And I got back in the car. I put my sunglasses on. I was driving. I couldn't even speak. And Susan was better. Like she was saying, she had prepared. And so she was trying to joke and I was just like, I don't know if I could even drive right now because I was so shaken up. And Susan, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And that was one of the hardest drives home I've ever experienced. And on top of that, God kept bringing up all these incredible songs on the radio about like Cat in the Cradle and
I mean, that song is a killer on a normal day.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, yeah, just these Andrew Peterson songs about raising his son and all these things that just kept coming up, and I'm like, really, God? Like, I'm
well, you know, Susan she made a playlist. She didn't tell you. She was over there feeding it. Yeah,
She did that in therapy.
Yeah, exactly. It was her from 6 months before her list.
Yeah.
Well,
and I will say we did plan better for our second son because I knew this was coming. So we didn't even go home after we dropped him off. We went to a bed and breakfast and spent a whole weekend just crying and just like just being together.
Yeah.
So there was Reed was a different type of grieving, but I was more prepared for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I want to honor you guys, and I just feel in my spirit as you're saying that, like, that's going to help somebody so much, because I think so many people approach those markers probably in denial a little bit. And I wasn't talking about you.
Is it going to help?
Right. But hearing you talk about that and both sides of it, you know, they're both beautiful and they have their own, you know, sweet parts to both of those sides of that story. But, you know, I think it's definitely will be helpful for people to hear that who might be approaching that in the near future, or even a few years away, but just to think, I need to file that away, because that was very, Susan, especially the way you tried to approach it, just to protect yourself and protect Seth in the process. Maybe you should have tried to be protecting Tim too.
That's the truth.
Definitely helped. Well, along those same lines, again, just, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to have you guys on here, not just because we love you and we do, and it's always fun to talk. And y'all are the people. We have a few friends like this. When we have these conversations around the kitchen table or wherever we are, it's always like, man, that would be people need to hear that. Like, there's some wisdom that was shared in that conversation. But another season of life that you guys have been navigating kind of alongside this, maybe simultaneously, or maybe even a little before the boys left. I'm not sure the exact timing, but I know, Susan, you guys have been, I don't have a good verb for this, dealing with, handling, engaging. I don't know the right way to say it, but with aging parents that you've been taking care of and serving and just, I mean, you've given so much into that. And Jen and I don't have that experience because our parents, unfortunately, passed, younger, or when we were younger. But I'd love to hear you guys talk about that season and what that's been like and what you've learned through it. Is there anything you'd like to share about it?
Yeah, I will say that it surprised me. Like, they talk about us being the sandwich generation, and it surprised me how thin the sandwich was for us. It all transpired during 2020. That was a heck of a year for us with the pandemic, with, everything, walking with the boys through all the upheaval in their lives. Regraduated class of 2020. Both boys went to college in the fall. And my parents had moved less than a mile away from us back in 2013. So they were very much a part of our lives for the past decade. Very present. My dad was often found in our yard. He loved yard work more than anything after he retired. So he was often in our backyard because he just wanted to be close to us. And Mama would take care of us by cooking or picking up the boys. And of course, over the 12 years they lived here, things started shifting where their care for us shifted to more of our care for them. And it started subtly. It would start with a phone call from my dad asking Tim to come reprogram his TV remote. And Tim would show up and there'd be a basket of half a dozen remotes because Daddy had gotten frustrated and gone to Walmart and bought a bunch of remotes, or helping them with credit card charges that they couldn't make sense of. And then over time, the care shifted to being present with them at doctor's appointments and helping manage their medicine. And that was unwelcome by my mother, who's always been fiercely capable and independent. And I think by that point, my dad was just glad to sit and watch Andy Griffith. So he was much more kind about the caregiving that was required. And so that was in 2020 that my mom had a episode and was in the hospital, and a doctor actually turned to both of us and said, she has to take care of you now. She has to go to doctor's appointments. She has to manage her medicine. And so that really, I had about 3 months with Reed and Seth gone to college and a respite. And then I began to daily be down at their house taking care of them. And that was about 1.5 years of that until my dad got sick. And Daddy got sick and died very quickly. And I was able to move in with them and be with them for the days of hospice. And Tim and I were able to be in the house with them when he passed. And then it was shocking to realize after he had gone that my mom was actually in worse condition than we realized with her dementia. So we did our best to honor her desire to stay in the house for 18 months. And so that meant driving for her, cooking for her, managing her meds. And then it just became something that was not sustainable and not the best thing for her, quite honestly. She was in her late 80s, and so we had to trump her will and move her to an assisted living facility. And that's where she's been for 2.5 years now. And she's 91, and she's very content. And most days are good days for her. And we're super grateful for that.
I don't know that Tim has aging parents, so he's not there yet. So everybody's in a little bit of a different phase of this.
Yeah,
go ahead,
I will
Tim.
say, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
One thing I love about my husband is he does not differentiate between his parents and my parents. And he loves my mother as if she is his, and she has been for 32 years.
Yeah.
So I have definitely not been in this season alone. And he's been there every step of the way. He's been there for the hard conversations. He's been there for some messy moments. He's been there to bring joy and that playfulness that he brings into a room, into those hard moments with her. And he's just been really faithful. So he has really loved her in this season as a son unto a mother. And I'm so grateful.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. And I'll say the challenge of the sandwich generation is caring for parents who don't want to be cared for by their children, if that makes any sense. They still see us as children, not as adults.
Yeah.
And there's been some challenges in that of recognizing that Betty, we need to do this, and she doesn't understand that she doesn't have the capacity to make those decisions any longer, and so her agency and her is disappearing, and but she's still spiritually holding on to something that, and it can be really challenging. It's a hard space to be in.
Yeah. We, like I said at the beginning of this little segment, we can't really relate to this. It's just something, when I hear people talk about it, I can imagine, but I really don't know, and we don't really know what that's like. And one thing I think is true in the West anyway, in America in particular, is, and part of the reason for this whole discussion, this podcast, is oftentimes aging is not celebrated very well. It's certainly not honored a lot of times. Everybody's fighting it as hard as they can, and especially in our generation. And healthy is one thing, denial and not really engaging with it is something else. And so, anytime I get to talk to somebody like you who's doing it and doing it well, especially as a Christ follower, and especially biblically trying to honor your father and mother and the things that go along with that, I just again, I want to honor you guys, celebrate that, because it's such a it sounds like an incredible sacrifice, but also sounds like there's joy in it too. What would you guys say are some of the joyful moments in it, or what are you thankful for? Having gone through the process and being in it still, what are you thankful for that you have as a blessing in it?
I think with my dad, I think there's probably few honors on this side of eternity of being with him when he passed, and of being able to be with he and mom in their last 2 weeks together and bearing witness to that. It's just a holy space. And so rewarding doesn't feel like the right word. I think it's a treasure.
Yeah.
It was just a treasure. Hard to be sure, but we knew he was dying. And so it almost was a gift from God. Because of the way he died, we knew his days were numbered. And so we were able to just like be so present to every day with him, even though he was sleeping most of those days. But it was a really tender space for me, and really invited like some really young parts of me up to be with my dad again. And that was a gift, right? To like hold his hand and say the things I wanted to say. So I'm really grateful for the gift it was to be with Daddy. I think that's a harder question with my mom to say what's been rewarding about it, because I will say it has been really hard. Yeah. And I think a surprising gift has been a result of her dementia. She has become really tender in a way that she never was. And it's almost like the dementia has like pulled some of her own trauma out of the way so that she can just be my mom in the way that my heart always longed for. So when I walk into the assisted living now and she sees me coming, she lights up. Well, I have longed for my mom to light up when I walk in a room for 50 years. Yeah. And so the dementia has cleared away, is what I'm choosing to believe, whatever was in the way of her actually responding in the way that she would have longed to have had she had the healing and capacity to offer that to me. And so that is a gift. It's a very, there's tension in that space, right? Like there's tension because I've not really received a lot of that. And so it's new. And so, but I try to like shift my posture to one of receiving and just being grateful for the hugs and being grateful for every utterance of I love you that I've longed for a long time. And so that is a blessing of it. And I think I've learned in 4 years without my dad, like what remains. And I feel like that's going to be one of the things, so that the hard stuff will be sifted to some degree. And what will remain is that look on her face when I walk in a room.
So good. It's so good.
That's beautiful.
Mark, I do think your question was really good around, is there advice you would give to people starting the beginning of this journey with aging parents? For, everybody's circumstances are different, but is there a thing like, I'm going to 100% start therapy again when Rivers becomes a senior? So what can you tell people that you wish you had known or that you think would be helpful about the beginning of this journey?
Support is so crucial. And so, like I mentioned, like Tim has been so supportive during all of this. And then our close friends have just been so supportive and have just created this safe space for me to show up. And sometimes I show up pretty messy and raw and very teary. And they have just continued to be a safe space for me to show up. And a couple of them have already walked this path ahead of me. And so just their understanding and compassion for how hard it is and how long it is. Like Daddy, it felt like a quick goodbye. Mama's the long goodbye.
Yeah.
And she is leaving. Like the mother I knew is pretty much gone. And so it's just this strange space. And so find support from people who have maybe journeyed this path before you, because they have a certain level of understanding that is just a real gift. And then I will say this was another season I entered therapy. I'm a firm believer in therapy, if that's not already clear. And so again, I went back to a therapist that had done some work a decade ago. And so he knew my stories with my mom and my dad. And it was like a shorthand. But even if you don't have a therapist that you've done work with before, it was crucial because he was the advocate for my mental health, my emotional health.
Yeah.
And so he was able to name when I would say, no, I can do this another 6 months. No, I can keep her at home another 6 months. Both he and Tim said, no, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You're not going to be okay. It's time to move her. And so it was so helpful to have advocates advocating both also for me. So I would just say support.
You mentioned your commitment to therapy and what people may not know about you, Susan, is you've been a long-term sort of student of counseling, therapy, not only on the receiving end, but in the providing end as well. And you have a lot of education in that space, a lot of practice in that space. You've helped a lot of other people. And I know you and Tim both together have, through church and other things and just life and the friends you talk about, aside from us, that we don't know, but people that you live with out there in Tennessee, just all the stories of walking through things with people, that seems to be a real theme for you guys, and just giving so much and pouring into other people. I'd love to hear your thoughts, having done that and consistently still doing that, and I know you always will. What are you learning? What are some consistent themes you're seeing from other people in our age group that they're struggling with, besides the things we've talked about already? But what are some issues you see that kind of come up a lot, and how do you help them navigate that?
Thanks, Mark. And I do want to clarify, I'm not a therapist. I just I do feel like that's important to clarify.
But you're close. You're really close.
I have done some layperson training in the realm of narrative-focused trauma care, which is the big word for story work. So I do feel like that's an important distinction. But I do love sitting with people and their stories. And one thing I think tends to happen in this time frame is a real loss of heart, a loss of imagination, and a lack of desire. And so I think, and I particularly experience this with women, because when our season, however long or short it is, of raising our children, if we have been, mothers of children in our nest, and when that season comes to a close, it can sometimes feel like our life's work is done, because we really haven't been imagining what would be next. And we probably, for me, I bore witness to a generation of women who include my mother and her friends, that was their prime occupation. And then after that, they lived in pretty small stories of garden club and church Bible studies. And not to say that there's anything wrong with those things, but, I think there was a lack of imagination for how the next chapter of their life could contain a lot of growth and interest and bear fruit. And so that's what I see when I sit with people, just this temptation to resignation.
Yeah, we talk about that so much on here. It's really one of the big motivators of this ongoing conversation is just challenging people to, I would use the word dream, but imagination is such a great word. Because the way you say it, what I love about that is it kind of implies they really can't see themselves doing something else. They can't envision what a different life might be, or this might be a little corny, but I'm just thinking of that movie, You've Got Mail, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. It's an old movie, but our generation, Tim, we all know what that movie is.
That is Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
But, if you know the story, and if you haven't seen it now, I'm not going to give a spoiler alert because it's been 30 years, so get over it. But in the story, there's the moment where she's lost her business and she's got to figure out what she's going to do. And the older lady in the story, her kind of adopted mother, so to speak, or aunt or whatever she is, she says, you're brave because you're imagining you could have a different life than the life you thought you were going to have. And I think that applies so well here, because what feel like I'm just trying to preach to people that are listening is, you may be on a path that you stay on, and that's great. And, whatever God has for you, awesome. But there's so much opportunity to do something different, to have a different job or a different career or a different ministry, or start something new, or whatever it is. And just to try to stir that up a little bit, to go, hopefully encourage them, just like you're saying, you can do that. It is possible. In fact, it's preferable, because of growth and curiosity and learning and all the things that keep us sharp and the stuff that goes with it. So I love that you said it that way. I think that's really, really, really powerful. Tim, what do you see, with maybe some of the men that you deal with? I know you're doing a lot of story work with guys, and like the trip that you and I got to go on together back in September, you're investing in that. What are you seeing?
The word I think about, and I wish I could find a better word, but complacency is a challenge, I think, or folks becoming static, where they view retirement as, eat, sleep, and be merry, right into the sunset. This is my reward for whatever. And, and many of those things are good in themselves, but it's just not a big enough story to live in for very long.
Yeah.
And as far as I think you mentioned it, and it resonated with me, is that a lack of imagination of what can be next, and not understanding that it seems like that's the wide road that most people take, is let's just go off into the sunset and the eternal beach vacation or golf course membership type, which sounds amazing, but to a certain extent. But I don't, it could be part of it, but it's definitely not the full story. So I think men lacking an understanding of staying curious.
Chris Bruno, who you guys know, and is kind of a common connection, that you helped introduce me to him. And I referenced you guys on that podcast. I don't know if you heard that, but
I heard
it. Yeah. Well, I gave you a big shout out. I was like,
I know. Why did the word brutal stick with me? He described my editing as brutally brilliant. I know. Chris, if you're listening, I'm having to wrestle with the label of brutal.
I think it's a great label. Yes.
Yeah.
And I asked Susan, I said, why are you picking the word brutal rather than brilliant?
I know.
I'm with you.
I'm doing my work. I'm doing my work. That's right. I'll get to the root of it.
But he said something really interesting when we were talking about this, and he said something really profound that I've never heard anybody say before. He said, and I'm going to misquote it a little bit, but the gist will come through. He said, retirement is a moving in the direction of absence. And that rocked me. And we're kind of anti-retirement around here. We're talking about we're going to go till we drop dead. I mean, that's the hope, that God will use us and serve. But it's a mindset of I'm no longer needed, is what I kind of took from that. And of course, being the author of a book called Sage, which is all about stepping in and becoming the thing God's designed you to be as you get older. It was such a challenge and a good reminder to say that, and also he has that famous quote, or well-known quote from him about you can become elderly or you can become an elder. And again, the whole point is you have to choose. The elderly thing will happen in without any effort. Like it's just going to happen.
Right.
But it's the absence of any effort. But to do the other thing, to have imagination, to believe that there's something else that you could do, it takes energy, effort, desire, Susan, to use your word, dreaming. And it's not easy. It's actually, it's hard.
It is.
And all good things are, I think, And so really just trying to remind people that the effort is worth it. There is more there is something else God has for you. There's, we say a lot on here, calling and purpose don't have any expiration date. Like that, those are things that God has for you if you'll just look for it. And I hope people listening and watching will be encouraged by that, because it really, going to Scotland and taking guys on trips to North Carolina and meeting with people, and Jinda's doing the same thing with an endless line of students, and she's like a mother to a whole nother generation there at the college, and it's sometimes tiring. It's exhausting. It's hard to listen to people talk. It's hard to pour into people. It's hard to give so much of yourself, but it's so fulfilling and so rewarding. And the contentment I know that comes from that is so, you just can't put a value on it. So just for what it's worth, I want people to be encouraged by that.
Yeah. And I just want to name, it's also such courageous work. Like, I am in such awe of Tim's yes over the past, particularly 3 years, to enter into what he's naming as these gray spaces. Like, his courage to do that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of men who would do that. And people who are courageous to ask hard questions and to rethink some things that have been pretty entrenched for decades. Like, this is courageous work, but the fruit of it is, such a rich second half.
Yeah.
I just believe that, we're just, I think, entering our second half, but like, we're tilling the soil for what I hope will be rich decades to come.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we kind of move toward the end here, I'd love to give people a chance to connect with you guys. I know you don't necessarily have a platform per se or a big website or whatever, but I know how come to Knoxville, right? But I know how available you are to people. So how could people find you or connect with you online, or what would that look like if they wanted to reach out to you?
I am finishing my certified spiritual direction training, and then I also lead story groups online in a class called Writing to Heal, writing, WRITING. And you don't have to be a writer to participate in that, but it's a really lovely space that a friend of mine and I have been partnering in for 5 years. And so we offer a different group each semester. So we'll have a new group starting up in February. And so I can give you my email, Mark, and if people want information about that story group, we would love to have you participate. And those groups are particularly for women.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. And Tim, you're obviously leading at a high level with Restoration Project, and maybe something else too, but I'd love for you to share about that.
Yeah. And that's what I was like, how do they reach me? I was like, yeah. But
nobody leaves this podcast without some assignments. Like, we're going to put you to work.
I will say Restoration Project has been a great space for me exploring these questions and the discussion we had today. And it's generally focused on men, all ages. But if you're interested in exploring who you are as a man, whether you're 18 or 80 or even older, RP Restoration Project is a great place to do that. They have experiences throughout the year, from retreats for men, father-daughter, father-son experiences. Men, I'm about to go on a SAGE experience in Scotland here in about 6 weeks, and I can't wait to go. But exploring these concepts of, like, what does it mean to be a man entering into our second chapter of life? So, as I said, stay curious, and RP is a place that you can stay curious in. Well,
y'all, it's gone by too fast, but it's been awesome. It's been so good, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably and being so transparent about what I know have been some hard times, but also a very rewarding time. Yeah. I just believe with all my heart it's going to help a lot of people. I really do.
Thank you. Well, we love you, Mark and Jinda, and so good to see you on the screen. Hopefully we can see each other soon in 3 dimensions.
I hope so too. I hope so too. Love you guys so much, and so grateful for your lives, for all that you have done and all that you do, who you are. You're connected to my most core and sweet seasons of healing and a lot of laughs. The only thing missing from this podcast is a card game, so we'll definitely have one soon.
Rain
Love
check
you
for
guys so
sure.
much. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Love you. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Love
you.
you all.
Yeah.
Love you too. Man, what a powerful, powerful hour that was. Just some incredible things that we learned from them as we went through that conversation. I hope you got a lot out of it too, some things that you can apply in your own life or share with friends. And this is one of those topics I just want to really encourage you, share with your friends, put it out there, put it on your social media, let people know about it. I think this is a topic we don't hear near enough about. And I think they have some great things to say that many people could learn from. So make sure you're sharing that resource with anybody you know that could benefit from it. And make sure you reach out to Tim and Susan. The contact info is in the show notes there if there's anything they can do for you. If you'd like to contact them directly, learn more about Restoration Project or the coaching that she does, they would love to hear from you. Hey, I'm really excited about the next few weeks, the next episodes that are coming out. I want to really encourage you to be tuning in. Among our guests, we've got Michael and Terry Smith, who are going to be talking about vision retreats that they do with couples to go away and work on the future, work on the vision for the next year, to get on the same page spiritually, financially, all the different parts of our marriage that we need to be working on. And they have some great things to say. You're going to love them. We got Pastor Bridget Kelly coming up in a few weeks. That's powerful. We've got some topics where we're going to be talking about AI and what our generation can be learning from that and about that tool, and many other things that I'm super excited to share with you. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you subscribe, like, and follow on whatever channel you're on. And again, don't forget to check us out on ageoflions.com. Hope you had a great day with us today. We can't wait to see you next time. Talk to you soon.